Welcome back, noble heroes. We return once again to Mythia. Our characters have captured a duck. Let's go ahead and get started. As you pull your hand out of Drake, you have collected the information that I've given.
She passes that along to both of them. So he's not a pervert. That's good.
Did you see any connections with darkness?
No, just interest in everything.
June actually will let out a sigh. One of the reasons she was so concerned is because of the whole, a being who's powerful enough to set off Jagarin darkness. This guy goes into the darkness, and he manages to escape. So yes, she's been a little concerned.
It's totally fair.
She goes, I feel better.
What do we do with him?
I'd like to have a word with him, actually.
He is drunk.
Euphemia reaches back in. Can she pull out the sedation or drunkenness from him?
He begins to flap his little feet.
Drake, we'd like a word. We're not angry at you, nor will we harm you. We wish to speak with you.
He mumbles something through the chain. Should I let him loose? Leslie asks.
If we remove the bonds on your beak, are you going to try to teleport out of here? Somebody inside him.
You're assisting me.
Uh-huh. She looks to you. Oh.
Double 15, so 24.
You think he's out of spells?
June, I think Drake is all out of resources.
Well, considering he went against me, Harper's whole crew, and Potjack, one should hope. All right.
Leslie's hand goes...
Okay.
He goes... What do you want?
First, I'd like to ask, why did you go to the academy today?
He looks kind of like panicked. He's going to look around and then say, plenty of unique specimens.
That's fair. There are. If you wish to see anatomy in a non-annoying and
Creepy.
way, I can help you with that. I understand that you're a researcher, and you're quite gifted in magic.
How do you know so much about me?
Well, I have my ways.
Okay.
She nods. She's like, I can't tell you. But
If you want to do research, I don't think you can find more research-minded people than these two.
He sort of looks back and forth between the two of you.
You grew up in the Emerald Lake, right?
How do you know all this? He asks all of you.
It's part of my gift.
Do I have a bounty on my head again? He says.
no, but considering your actions, I'm not surprised that you would.
Why choose that route of all things to look at specimens?
He says, it's not my fault that you humanoids are so... He kind of like tightens up. He says, concerned.
Yes, but you stood in your own way half the time. There would be much easier ways to see.
Like what?
Well, one, if you insisted on not revealing yourself entirely. You could simply say that you were a polymorphed person who got stuck in the form of a goose or a duck. And then you could go forth and
He says,
do research.
tried that.
What about
Did they
more?
try to reverse it?
He says, that or they were concerned that I was being a pervert. He says,
Why didn't you go into medical research?
nobody lets a duck into a hospital.
That's fair.
What about a morgue?
I want to see bodies in motion, he says.
Why?
Because I can see dead people whenever I want. I'm not a necromancer, he says.
What exactly are you studying?
He says, tough to explain.
Try.
All right. He's going to launch into like a very detailed story about after he was done stealing a picnic basket at the Emerald Lake, he saw an artist. And that artist was drawing a beautiful woman standing on a cliffside overlooking the lake. And he like flowed his brush. And as he crafted this beautiful portrait of a woman, the duck's like eyes gleamed like gemstones as he saw art in motion. And then he realized that he doesn't have any hands, so he can't make art in motion. But one thing he can do is create homunculi using magic.
Okay, why can't he just polymorph himself?
He says, I don't want to be a human or any kind of humanoid. I want to make them.
That's fair.
Like a whole race.
That's ambitious.
So I'm studying the movements of active humanoids in order to get it right.
Would you like a research position?
He's going to say, are you with those esteemed guardians of fate?
June's face transforms from being polite, interested in that, to furious in a second. She was like,
Because I'm not interested in one of those positions. I already told you guys no.
I swear I will wipe out every single one of those assholes. No, I am not.
He goes, then who are you with? You with the crown?
No.
You with the Mages Guild?
Unfortunately, the esteemed guardians of fate have been screwing with our image lately, but I am a godmother.
Those don't exist, he says.
June gets out her magic wand and says, how can I prove it to you?
Oh, please don't waste it.
She goes, she legitimately kind of wants him to work for her.
This is an interview right now.
Yes, it is. It morphed.
He could probably make me a really cool construct.
I also thought about that.
He goes, all right, if you're a godmother, change into the most beautiful duck I've ever seen.
What classifies as a beautiful duck? He asks.
Obvious, he says.
So you're not a pervert, but you are obnoxious.
Okay, so I can easily transform, but to get to his preferences, how would that work?
So, I mean, you know what a lovely duck looks like.
But it's all about personal preferences.
Right. It's not very possible. Unless you're, I'd say maybe 5 wish points.
Or, hang on.
Has it been 10 minutes?
Yeah, so I was getting ready to say, I was like, can she just look for me?
Why? What's up with the 10-minute thing?
I wanted to put the drunkenness in something.
Oh.
I'm just curious. He doesn't want, unless he wants it back, I mean.
Did you, when the 10 minutes runs out,
Put it in a flask. That'd be hilarious.
I'm trying to think of what
He's going to like, sort of like, oh, what's that?
Wait, what?
He wants it back?
Of course he does.
He was curious about it.
Okay, well, once he's drunk, she
It's really
goes,
funny.
okay, do me a favor. Find out what his ideal duck looks like.
Am I a matchmaking service now?
God. He goes, wow, you're the most beautiful duck I've ever seen. And he goes, you win. He's like,
Can you get him to sign something while he's like this?
It's not necessarily binding any longer, but let's do a fade-out.
sure. He says,
She's vaguely opposed to doing this to an inebriated
Yeah, I was gonna say we're
sentient
coaxing
creature,
him to
but
a fake
Actually-
oath while he's drunk. We're such horrible people.
actually, I think June would be opposed to that.
Oh, okay.
I have to. She goes, would you take his drunkenness away again, please? I'm sorry to use him like this, Yuki.
She reaches in to take it again.
he goes, such pretty wings, as he looks at your hand. And then, what did you do to me? He like flips out.
Shh. We made you sober again.
He goes, it's terrible.
Okay, well, you can be drunk again in a moment if you'd like. However, I'm not going to make you take an oath while you're not cognizant.
He's like looking around. Where did all those pretty ducks go? He says, like searching the room.
I turned back.
He's gonna like roll deception.
I'm assisting.
Thank you.
I'm very good at deception.
How are you assisting? I need like an assist.
Oh, I fucking crit.
All right.
And
He
that's
goes-
a 27.
He goes, wowee. Well, a deal's a deal, he says.
She's not laughing. Standard agreements, basically, for workers. Thank you.
Thank you.
She sets him up
Alright.
through the Zaratan.
All right. The next day, this duck will be carrying manila folders around.
She even gets him a research assistant.
All right.
Dude, he's brilliant. He worked out teleportation by himself in 3 years. Of course she wants him to work for her. I foster talent. He's talent.
All right.
She does actually, before she sets this all up, she looks at you and says, are you okay with this?
It's fine. We have bigger fish to fry.
Yes, and this duck is talented.
Hopefully it pays dividends.
She will tell him what you were planning to about the whole Emerald Lake bit.
Tell him to design the most combat lethal homunculi he can come up with.
Thinking about using it?
Yes.
I'll think about that.
Okay.
She goes, we are planning to investigate the Emerald Lake. It has recently turned into an actual emerald.
He nods. As you describe the nature of the task, he seems quite gung-ho to work through the problem.
Okay. She will introduce him to Annalise tomorrow.
Okay.
She says, I'll introduce you to a research fellow.
This worked out swimmingly.
It really did.
Swimmingly.
Quackingly.
Can I eventually get a stat line for the duck for going on quests?
Yeah.
Okay.
Does
we
he want
lost
his drunkenness
Pit,
back?
we lost Wraith, but we got
Yep.
Duck.
Drake.
Drake.
He is not going to take it back because if he has to wake up early tomorrow for work, then
Could you put it in something?
What?
Please put it in a flask.
She doesn't have a flask
I
on.
can give you a flask. Do you need a flask?
All she's got on her is a little dagger. Like a little itty bitty one.
Okay, so you're putting drunkenness in the dagger?
Why not?
Drunken needle.
Okay.
Maybe.
You could use your new technique to like throw the knife at someone and
Maybe.
make them super drunk.
It might be completely useless, but it's
So you now have, it looks like a knife, but it is clearly much wider than a knife, and it has like a little like spinny top where the blade should be.
Wait, what?
It is a flask shaped like a knife.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Oh, okay. I get what you're saying too.
That's pretty fun.
Told you should have put it in an actual
Can
flask.
she figure out what it does by looking at it?
You sort of like unscrew the top of it. There's like beer inside.
That's
Beer
all it
or
does?
bourbon? Come on.
Whiskey.
You're gonna do it. It's gotta be bourbon.
Bourbon.
He was already drunk on bourbon. She tasted it when she... That's much better than beer.
Sorry about your knife.
Hey man, unlimited bourbon.
Yeah, maybe.
Anybody want?
It's worthless to me.
Isaac grabs it and takes a swig. Does it do anything?
Oh god, you're gonna get sloshed
grab it
in
and just
3
take a sip?
seconds.
I take like a mouthful.
Okay.
Wait,
As you
you're-
pull it back down,
I can't get drunk through conventional drinking, so I'm wondering if this does it.
Oh god, I hope it does. That would be so nice for
We
you.
finally found it.
If I instill myself with the concept of drunkenness, does that work?
no. However, when you withdraw it from taking the mouthful, the same amount of bourbon is in the knife.
So it didn't run out.
Correct.
Did it taste like bourbon?
Yes.
And some people would kill for this. As he hands it back and he says, it didn't work.
I'm sorry, Isaac.
We tried.
Prongor is going to like take it between and like take a couple of sips.
Does he get like super slushed?
Quite fine, he says as he hands it back to you.
I could probably sell it for a good price.
A flask of unlimited whiskey would fetch... Oh, how much would I charge for that?
I can't believe a pirate would want to sell it.
Yeah, maybe you shouldn't. How much
She looks at you and
space...
goes, come on now, stereotypes and all.
How much space would we save in the Outrunner if we got rid of all of the ale and whiskey and just kept this on a shelf?
Euphemia blinks a moment and looks at him and says, "You want to bring more constructs on my ship, don't you?"
He looks over in the corner and there's these two things just like standing there looking at us.
I knew it.
He's not wrong, though.
No, actually, it might be helpful, particularly if we end up needing to use the Outrunner to transport more of the crown or anything else.
Indeed. Well, that being said, why don't you get off to whatever you were doing and you'll meet at the Zaratan. I will have somebody greet you at the gates in the morning at, say, 8 o'clock.
He quacks his affirmation.
She
Leslie
would have
is-
said the crown. I didn't realize he was still in the room. She would have said to transport things.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't realize he was still here. I thought you'd set him up with a research assistant and he was gone.
All right. If you guys are fine to do so, I would like to skip Hero's birthday tomorrow and go straight to the summit.
Will we go back to it next session?
Yes.
Okay.
He looks so sad.
I was sad.
I would have been sad for you too.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Alright.
Totally
Okay,
fine.
there's been some serious work up to this for a while now. Okay.
There is a nervous tension. The room that you are in is massive.
Which queen is coming?
Movin.
Okay. Fire one?
Yes.
Alright, cool. Wait, so Jossie is coming?
Unclear.
It is very likely that he is.
Okay. She does talk to you before we split off the night before, giving you the option.
She decides to attend.
Okay. She just wanted you to have that choice.
you see a cadre of paladins, and Roland and Harper are in the room. You see a royal crier at the front who will make the announcement when you all enter of your names and any titles that you might possess.
June chose to go full godmother for this.
Is she wearing like a...
She's in the big fluffy... You haven't seen this big fluffy pink thing for a long time. She looks ephemeral. She looks like she sparkles as she moves.
She looks like the Good Witch.
A little bit, yeah. She's
Okay.
a little Glendy.
As you all prepare, you are given regal individual seats off to one side, separate from the sort of half thrones that the kings are sitting on. These are not their normal seats, but they are very majestic royal chairs that have been set up for them. And you guys have a separate position at a different table, and it's you all, Harper, Roland at this table. And it's just the Quester's hero and those two. And then there is a small murmur coming from the kings as they wait. And there is a clear wondering about what this is going to entail. As you are waiting, there's drinks being served, quite refreshing melon juice, which has a sweet flavor, but not like overly sweet. Is June adding sugar to hers?
She makes a little sparkly thing, so basically she's just changing the flavor as she does it.
I gotcha. All right. So,
Great power.
It is.
in attendance, the Boris, the Dragonborn, Amanistress, Jasrid, Kodan, Noctel, Rezium, Tyrell, and then the people at your table. A bunch of paladins. You all hear a horn of announcing outside. And you are going to look up and see a sort of royal, like, sternness take over on most of the faces of the kings, except for Rezium, who always looks that way. Kodan is going to turn and sort of like nod in the direction of Roland and Harper. And Harper's just kind of, he looks bored, if anything. What do each of you look like? Hero looks very nervous, and he keeps drinking too much melon juice.
Do they have to keep coming by and giving him refills?
He's like,
Isaac is in his element, so he looks natural. Well, he always looks unnatural, but he looks comfortable. He doesn't look nervous.
okay. It was fairly obvious from the beginning that you guys would have to give up your weapons.
Can I leave mine with Prongor? Okay.
Euphemia looks a little stiff. She's well aware she needs to control herself if and when who shows up. She's got maybe slightly kind of a bit of a mask on her face of like trying to be jovial but not quite hitting the mark.
Okay. Juniper?
June looks serene.
Okay. You will suddenly hear from the doorway, and then you'll hear yelled quite loudly, Estrid! Queen Estrid the Winter Child of Bridgewalk, Queen of the Adamantine Fortress and Lady of Drakes! And you will see Queen Estrid, garbed in a very similar tribalistic uniform that you saw before. She is highly powdered so that she is pale white, and she is going to enter with regal pose and a regiment. You see two guards, both with weapons and bridge locks, are going to enter, and she's going to walk very sternly up to the kings, and then it sort of breaks as she kneels, or she doesn't kneel, she like bends over to like greet Amanistress, Tyrell, She pats Kodan on the shoulder, and they exchange pleasantries. And then she's going to look over and give you all a winning smile and a nod of appreciation in your direction. Before she looks up, and a second. Queen Movin, the Flame Queen of Alerna, holder of the sacred scimitars, and Ruby of the Riverlands. So you all have seen Queen Estrid's picture, I believe. But you have not seen Queen Movin. She is a fiery, literally, redhead.
Ooh, wow.
With her body wreathed in flames, and it especially comes out of her very bright hair. She is a very muscular woman and dresses extremely scantily in very, functional leather armor. You would consider her very comfortable with, a group of barbarians. The flames coming off her actually project heat about 20 feet out from her body. But as she comes forward, you're going to see there's a billowing happening on the tablecloth. And she's going to sort of stymie the heat on herself. And it sort of becomes like a simmering blue burn, like a stovetop, that sort of just lightly rings her body. She is with two priests. Looks like two clerics, specifically. One looks paladin-esque, and the other one looks much more like classic, holy robes and healer, cleric type. And you see that she has... the paladin is clearly holding two ruby scimitars that probably belong to her. But he's wielding them very gently, and he's kind of following her behind. And she's going to come in and sort of look around the room, and then sort of plop down in a chair rather casually. And she kind of lays back a little bit, and she clearly is uncomfortable in the chair, and keeps rocking back into it.
I like her.
June is vaguely considering making her an armchair.
As soon as she sits, you're going to hear do 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 do. King Jasia Madandian, the immortal Evermaster of Aragoth, wearer of the Platinum Crown of Kings, Lord of the Silver Hill, holder of the Screaming Fortress, Tidemaster and Lawkeeper of the Sacred Vaults. You see a large entourage with a man in front. King Jasia.
June will glance over at Euphemia when he comes in, just to check. She is seated next to you, just to make sure.
He looks to be about a 27-year-old man with dark black hair.
He looks a little bit like Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah, I can see that.
Anyway.
There is a sureness and a smugness and a sense of power coming from this man. And you see upon his head a very unique platinum crown. It appears to have a stoic, almost dwarven-esque face upon it, and 3 spikes protruding from the front of it. It sits almost looking weirdly sized for his head, as though it wasn't quite meant for him. Behind him, you see a trail of many people. One of them, standing very close to him, seems to be a woman with a bob of black hair. Her eyes are completely filled with black. You recognize Shade. What are these kids doing?
He didn't bring the one that, can read minds, did he?
No.
Okay, just checking. I was like, that'd be super uncouth. But just checking.
Shade's pretty scary on her own. No, you don't need to worry. Euphemia is controlling her face very well. It's very stiff, but her eyes are burning.
Is she wearing a tricorn?
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
She's not wearing a hat at the moment. She has on a sort of. It's almost like a club dress for some place that's very like kind of hip and happening rather than the.
She's got on a little black dress.
Yeah.
Okay.
She almost looks like they almost look like they could be a couple, or at least like siblings maybe, but you gain the sense that while Josiah has this projection of confidence, she has a very like subdued kind of almost servitudal attitude. Servile, yeah. Behind him, you see like ancient scholarly types. They seem to kind of like very, very slowly walk into the room, and they're each holding like little scrolls or little like boxes, golden boxes of something. They're going to come forward, and King Josiah is going to kind of wave his hand, and these old men are going to come forward and sort of place down these relics. He says, "Yours from the last battle we had," he says towards the kings of Giran. You're going to see the kings of Giran look over at the stolen relics from past wars. A gift, Josiah says, and there is a level of pleasure that he's gaining from this. Thank you so much, King Josiah. You're going to hear from Lady Tyrell. Please, if you would, we'll get started. Oh, what's that? I'm sorry, I hear something. Josiah says. Josiah is going to sort of step aside with a sly grin on his face. You look up and see representatives of Farmwatch. At the front of a group of what appear to be very old humans and one very big human, you see the following two people at the front of this group. The one looks tribalistic, wearing a massive headdress, an old lady with very, very cold eyes. The other is some kind of powerful warrior. The man has a spear in hand, and one of the guards is like approaching him to sort of get it. The crier is like following them, and he's like trying to ask them, "Well, your titles, please, your titles." He very clearly has no idea who any of them are at all. The woman in the front is going to like make a gesture of dismissal towards him and say, "You are as ill-informed as expected. I am Elder Amazil, and this is Farmwatch's champion," she says, gesturing to the very big, dark-skinned human. "Grenda, the victorious." You see Grenda, this like wild, sort of ferocious-faced human, and his eyes are locked on Roland the moment he enters the room. It's clear that if he had the chance, he would fight Roland right now. As the elders of Farmwatch, they outnumber the kings of Giran. 11 of them in total.
All
with
11
Elder.
of them came?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Which one was supposed to be the prophet?
You don't know.
But was it one of them?
Do we see anything that looks like the crown with them?
If it is, they didn't bring it.
Okay.
The elders are going to move forward towards the seats. As you search the group of them, they appear to all be wearing like brown, sort of, you would say they almost look like a cloak maybe a beggar would wear. They look very like low quality leather. Grenda has like a lot of like rings and tattoos all over his body. And he sits with venom and stares over at Roland And Shade is going to sort of look over at Euphemia and sort of like squint her eyes a little bit, like curious. And she sort of tilts her head and then walks over and sort of sits down with a thump next to Josiah, like she's bored already of this. There is a palpable disturbance from the arrival of Fartwatch. And you can tell that Josiah is clearly like, thinks he's got like an upper hand here. Well, let's begin, the elder says. Yes. You're going to see as Lady Amanistress rises. She is going with soaring voice to begin to speak about fate's breaking. She describes a prophecy that happened about a month and a half ago. And she waves over towards you all. These Questers 5 were chosen by the prophecy to lead a battle to figure out why fate is breaking, she says, looking over the crowd. You keep expecting Josiah to interrupt or ask a question. He looks like he's about to many times. And you're going to see several glances exchanged between Josiah and Elder Amazel.
Okay.
You can almost feel a divide between the table. On one half, the kings of Gira and Alirna and Bridgewalk and yourselves. On the other, Aragoth and Fartwatch. The elders are whispering amongst themselves very quietly and seem to sort of lean over at the suggestion that there is worldwide problems. We have seen many of these issues that you have spoken of.
Daniel, no one can sense if she uses See the Heart or anything, right?
Correct.
Can she use it on Elder, I can't say the name.
Amazel?
Thank you.
Yes. Go ahead and roll a perception check, please.
Okay,
Nice.
that is the
Good
good part of
roll.
the table. Okay. The good 22. No wait. Perception check, right?
Mm-hmm.
I used my insight. My bad.
That's
Okay,
good.
so that
Perception
should
is
be better. Yep.
It's +8.
So it's 25.
You see a plot hatching inside of her. There is a plan. The moment that something doesn't go favorably their way, for both of them to sort of align their efforts. Josiah has clearly discussed this with Elder Amazel, and she is the face representative of Farmwatch, even though she is not the leader of their elders. They have brought the big one for defense, in case this is actually an assassination attempt, which Josiah has lightly suggested to them over the course of several letters. And they are waiting for something that they don't agree with to be as snippy and difficult as possible in the proceedings and try to muddle things up.
Do they have an end goal they're looking for?
Yeah, what's important?
They don't know what this is particularly for.
They just don't believe the faith thing.
They do believe the fate thing. In fact, they're dealing with grave consequences of what they believe to be the fate thing right now. You see in her mind the witch, with which you guys
you don't know
heard the crown shard is being attacked by a witch.
Actually, I don't think that ever came up yet.
Well, you see it in her.
Okay, I was like, that hasn't been brought up in the group yet. I probably should have done that when we got together, and I forgot. Sarah.
You only get the Wicked Witch of the South. And there's like an army of skeletons and undead attacking their walls every night.
Does she see any other details? What's most important to this elder?
Her most important thing right now is
It's not me this time.
It's me this time.
there is a sort of defiance in her towards that side of the table and a sort of vague alliance-y deference to Josiah at the moment. But
Alliance, like...
she wants to hurt that side of the table.
A particular reason why? Because they're different?
Because you are disgusting mongrels.
Because you're not humans, most of them.
Yes.
Okay.
Especially Roland, who in her mind represents like a
perversion
champion,
of-
yes, a half-breed mongrel.
Are any of the kings of Garen's human?
One.
So
Tyrell.
they got one human there. Astrid is human. Moven's, is she an elf or human?
She is human.
Okay. And then me.
But she married an elf.
True.
Ah, blood traitor.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
As Amanistress speaks about the fates breaking in the prophecy, she's going to look towards you guys. You're going to see Jossia just kind of like sweep over. He's going to like lock his eyes on Isaac for a moment, and you're going to see like a curiosity. And Shade keeps looking back at Euphemia. But it looks like maybe Jossia doesn't know who you are at all.
That's handy.
Can she see the heart on Jossia? She wants to use this meeting to collect as much information as she can.
As you go to use your power, you're suddenly going to hear like a rush. There's like a murmur, like a loud something is happening in the entranceway. And you kind of see the kings like are going to look. Jossia is going to actually state, "What is this?" And you're going to hear, "Do do 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 do." Emperor Zento of Pabatas, slayer of the Elder Darkness, slayer of the Venomind, slayer of the Umbrant Worms, master of the Echoing Crystals.
Congratulations, you officially surprised June. June's eyebrows go up and she goes,
What is this? Jossia says, like slamming his fist on the table.
the gnomes are coming.
You are suddenly going to see a large entourage led by a spiny, red-haired gnome. So, as Jossia is going to stand up, the gnomes, unlike the others that sort of like regally like marched like impressively into the room, they just sort of like walk quickly into the room. There are 5 of them. The others are armored in crystal. Zento himself seems to have some kind of glowing green sword, like in his hand. And like a bunch of guards are like kind of going towards him. He's going to sort of look around. "Excuse me," he says. And he's going to like press a button on the sword and it just sort of vanishes out. What is this? Jossia says, pointing towards Zento. The gnome is going to sort of look at Jossia. He's going to say, "This is Zento. Didn't you hear the crier?" He's going to walk past Jossia. "You are the Gnome King. The one who lives under the ice." He's going to look over at Zento, sort of challengingly. The kings of Giran look very serious. Estrid looks extremely stony, like she has pretty much the whole time. And Moven is like she's like openly startled. What do each of you guys look like?
What would we know about the gnomes?
You know that they exist.
Okay. We've probably never seen one, right?
You've seen a gnome. Yeah.
Okay.
You've seen like
Wait, no,
like
very
4 or 5 gnomes in your
We've
life.
seen them in Bridgewalk. Okay.
You did hear June exclaim briefly as well.
Euphemia would have looked initially a little frustrated that her attempt had been thwarted by a distraction, and then reluctantly curious and interested.
You're going to very clearly feel that all of the plans and calculations that were made are suddenly like thrown on their head.
Nice
There is
job.
suddenly an unknown origin in the room. Zento is going to look towards Jossia. We have lived beneath the ice for longer than Aragoth has stood. You are ill-informed, as expected. Movin is going to, like... And then Jasia's, like, going to, like, start and look over towards her. Allergies, she says, rubbing her nose. But as soon as he looks away, she's going to, like, secretly smile beneath her hand.
His eyes are flicking between them all quickly.
Jasia is going to, like, look at him, and you can clearly tell he's, like, searching for something to, like, hurt him with. Like, some kind of piece of information, but he just doesn't know anything. So he's just going to kind of, like, please, continue, he says. Zento is going to, like, pull out a chair and, like, just kind of sit down in it and then, like, look up over the table.
You're just going to reach your hand out and then do that, and it floats up. And then the legs seem to grow down.
He's going to, like, look down at the chair as it's doing that, and he sort of looks across.
She winks at him.
He nods towards you. He seems grateful. So, please continue, Zento says. It feels as though if there were a duel, the side of Farmwatch and Jasia is now on the back foot. Zento, it seems, has drilled a hole straight to the information. So much so that by the time a magistrate gets done explaining the whole of what is happening with Fate, the two of them are just sort of nodding along, sort of like exchanging glances with one another consistently. Yes, we know about this. We are all fine with the presence of these questers, Lady Amazil says. There is a glance towards Jasia, who just sort of, like, nods, as though he doesn't want to give the effort of saying, like, okay. Then, you feel something shift. Boris stands up. I would like to give you another piece of important news that has occurred. Something for which we must discuss. The terrorist known as Pitt has been captured by Giran, he says. You are going to suddenly see, like, Jasia's eyes suddenly twitch. He's going to, like, look over towards Lady Amazil. They both make significant eye contact, and Lady Amazil stands.
Read him now!
I can't!
Boris is speaking about the idea that Giran is going to hold a public trial, and that each one of the kingdoms will be able to send representatives to act as sort of a prosecutor on behalf of their kingdom and lay out the crimes for which Pitt is responsible. One, Lady Amazil is going to stand up. She's going to say, it seems that Giran is overstepping its bounds with this trial. Pitt has done harm to all cities with his dark magic. In fact, he has killed an elder of Farmwatch only 4 years ago. With the most recent death on Farmwatch's doorstep, I would have Pitt's trial and summary judgment handled by our nation. We do not trust the niceties of the Jigarian's judicial system. Additionally, Farmwatch holds a central location between all nations, where travelers could reach. Boris is going to speak back to her. Are you suggesting that Farmwatch would open its doors to outsiders? The trial would be held in the Foreign Watch Ward, where trade between outsiders is allowed, she says. As generous as your offer is, Elder Amazil, Pitt's security is of the utmost importance, Kodan says. One slip-up and he could escape, or worse, spread a plague. We are not risking a move, especially so far.
What does Estrid look like, considering hers was actually the most recent kingdom to get hit by them?
Estrid looks like she has a great deal to say and is not going to say any of it.
Good for her.
Then send him to Aragoth, Jasia says. Aragoth has a teleportation field that can clearly be opened to Garen's offerings. Amanistress speaks. And what makes Aragoth a more fitting place than Garen to hold the trial? Unless you know something that we don't. She says, looking across the table very rigidly to Jasia. And you will see a sort of angry twitch in his fingers. You can immediately all tell that it is a hook thrown with bait into the middle of the table. Jasia's face begins to twist into a snarl. And why would anyone on Mythia trust you to have a fair trial? Pitt succeeded in killing your only king only a decade ago. He's going to give a distinct glance at Roland. It is clear that your security and judgment cannot be trusted to deal with him. Forgive me, Zento says. I am new to the history of this continent. But from my readings, did you not assassinate the true heir of your crown and steal his kingdom for your own? Why would anyone trust you for anything at all? From what little I have seen, you look to be a black-hearted knave with no courage at all. There is dead silence in the throne room.
Saying it how it is.
Yeah, June literally had to put her hand in front of her mouth as she's like,
All of a sudden, Shade stands, throws her chair back, and summons a giant shadow spear. You are going to see her hold it up and throw the blade toward Zento. Harper stands and slices upwards and lobs her arm off. Blood flies across the kings and queens. Estrid's going to...
June just held her hand out and a shield just appeared in front of her.
She's going to scream and then is going to like stagger away from Zento, like falling down towards her arm, and you're going to see like shadows sort of crawl out of her arm and like wrench the arm back into place.
What happened to the spear?
It disappeared as soon as her arm was cut. Clearly some kind of fate.
Yeah.
Jasia is standing, blood sort of spattered across his face. He looks down, pathetic, he says, specifically towards Shade.
Yuffie gets a little bit of a snarl on her face.
Roland is like half stood up by that point. Gendra, the warrior from Farmwatch, looks like he wants to like leap across the table and perform the same action towards Roland, probably with the same effect. But he doesn't. Jasia is going to turn. I would expect no less than the vile tricks of the dull and witless. Did you pay this gnome to act like a king? I am not convinced. The only thing that you have done that I am sure of is bring my would-be assassin to this table, he says, looking across the table at Euphemia. To threaten me with. It won't work. I cannot be threatened because I cannot die. Meanwhile, all you will wither away as your kingdoms rot from the inside. You will give pit to me, or you will rue the very day that you crossed me. Emperor, Zento says next to him. What? Jasia asks, incredulous. I am an emperor, not a king.
June did laugh, by the way.
Jasia is going to reach and like grab the sword off of his guard and like wrench it upwards. And Movin is just going to stand up and sock him right across the jaw.
Which one is Melvin?
The Fire Queen.
Please let us both just be
Actually, June does do that.
All right, there is like equal measure of like half standing up, like complete shock, like ripples just fly through the entirety of the royalty and the guards of the area as Movin just like uppercuts him into the air, and there's like a burn mark that appears on his chin.
You hear very quietly, only in your own ear. Aren't you glad you came for this?
Jasia is going to stand up and like, he's like holding his face. It's clear he hasn't been struck in just generations. He stands up and you think maybe for 1 second, there's like just a tear building in his eye as he's about to cry. And then he's going to, and he flies out of the room. His guards quickly following, and the elders of Farmwatch are going to stand up. She's going to quickly like drain her melon juice and then turn, and all of them are going to start like walking out. "We are not finished," Boris says. "We are," Lady Amazil says.
Let the children leave.
He's going to look over towards his guards. "Paladins, to their rooms," he says. "We are going to try to get them to go to rooms for the time being for refreshments. In the meantime, we will take a break and see if we can get any of them to return and listen." "Thank you all for coming," she says. "We will discuss more momentarily."
June actually is going to get up and walk over to Zento. She goes, "Emperor Zento, it's good to finally meet you in person. Eloise has told me much about you."
"And who are you? Who helped me with my chair?"
My name is Godmother Juniper.
He says, "You are a godmother. I have heard much about your people." He says, "And you are so beautiful."
Thank you.
He says, "I would like to meet you and the rest of your Quester allies."
I'm
says.
sure that the rest would be very pleased. And I as well.
He's going to sort of start walking behind you.
I dare say that was incredibly refreshing.
You're going to see
You as well. Mervyn.
she's going to like crack her knuckles heartily. She goes, "I hate that guy." And she's going to kind of like lean back, like kick her feet against the table so that her chair's like leaning back on its hind 2 feet. You're going to see like Rezium's like outraged at this lack of decorum. Harper is going to look across the table where he sliced Shade's arm off. "Excuse me," he says to Roland, audibly so that you guys can hear as he gets up to leave. "Jeez," Roland says as he looks around. He's going to like take off his helmet and look at the blood on it. It's going to take me forever to get this clean.
She just holds her hand down and just sloughs off.
"Ah, Juniper, thank you," he says. "It was
Oh.
disgusting."
Do the rest of us have any blood on us?
Yeah.
Oh, she just does this to each of you.
Oh. Thank you, June.
You're welcome.
Could
She
I
doesn't-
receive that treatment?
She just hands her head and does it the same thing.
Right. So, a red-haired gnome is up here with you guys. He's going to kind of come around the table. He seems to have no modicum of like the royal decorum that the others seem to possess. He's going to walk up and just like stick out his hand. "This is how you do it, right?" he asks.
Euphemia reaches back. "Right," and shakes it heartily.
Finally, someone of a reasonable size.
I feel the same.
He says, "And I barely caught your name."
Euphemia Carr.
He nods. "And it seems as though you have done this world a great service with your attempted assassination."
Attempted is the key word.
He says,
Who hasn't done it once or twice? She winks at you.
"And you again?" he says.
Isaac Crowley.
"I am Emperor Zento.
I've heard tales.
I don't know exactly what you all have heard. Perhaps you could enlighten me as to the world's knowledge on my people."
Perhaps you all should answer this. Mine is
You tell me
incredibly
more than
different.
us.
You're going to see that, like, some of the kings are clearly, like, trying to be like, go into the conversation. And then, like, a magistress is like, "Let the questers take care of it."
If you want normal folk, ask them.
Are we normal folk?
You're more than me.
Yeah, that's fair. What is popularly known about gnomes? Just that they live under the ice, essentially?
Yeah.
And they're good tinkerers, maybe?
They're psychics.
Psychics.
Wait, is that known?
Not normally.
Okay, sorry.
So we
She
wouldn't know
would-
either of those things. We wouldn't know anything like that. Okay. She would say, "All I'm aware of is that you and your people live under the ice."
That is correct, he says.
And that's about it.
"I see. So little." I guess we've done a good job, he says. Well, let's see. My people are significantly less populous than this city. I'm called an emperor because we have many other cities that we believe remain elsewhere in the ice that we've never had contact with, not since the ice appeared, he says, although nobody lives who remembers such things. You're going to see Roland kind of glance over at Juniper.
June very slightly narrows her eyes at Roland.
He's going to turn as Hero approaches. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you there, he says. This is Hero's just slightly taller than Zento. He goes, I'm Hero. He goes, a distinguished name, I think. He goes, this your city? He's going to laugh at his own joke.
That's funny. Okay, I get it. It took me a second there.
And you, I do know by reputation, he says, turning to Roland. Yeah, man. He's going to kind of reach out his hand and his gauntleted mailed arm. My people are capable of controlling these crystals, he says. And he's got a big ring of bluish crystals on his belt. He's going to hold out his hand and they'll just sort of float off his belt and start ringing around. We're able to make tools out of them. He's going to go like that and they sort of trinch and become a spanner. And then he's going to, and now they're a dagger. He goes, mine are known as the echoing crystals, he says, because they're able to make a very powerful noise that aids me in defeating the darkness.
Oh. Are you able to sense or track it?
We have learned methods of reading their minds from a distance.
How far?
Well, I'm not sure you have the length of measurement. We call it a half tunnel.
She would know that.
So half tunnel is roughly 3/4 of a mile.
She nods and says, so about 3/4 of a mile. Oh, very well. I would like to have a word with you after this, if you don't mind.
He says, well, I should be here for at least a few days. I actually need to have a word with you.
Convenient.
I believe you're the one that I had a prophecy about.
Beg pardon?
I had a vision many days ago. One in which was so powerful that it caused me to leave my nation, he says. I believe I'm here to help you with your problem. My vision showed me slaying a creature of elder darkness, one which is responsible for the elders, the race. It binds their minds together and gives them great power. I saw myself slaying this beast with your aid. That your information would lead me to it. Now that I know that this fate-breaking business is happening, I believe that I should aid you with that before I find this creature.
June looks incredibly contemplative right there.
I've been hunting this monster for as long as I've been alive. My father and grandfather and my great-grandfather hunted it as well, and we were never able to find it. If I am the king to be able to slay it, I may die happy.
And you saw me giving information on it.
I did.
I see. June is clearly sorting through all of her thoughts on...
Which one could it be?
Exactly. She's like, well, I have a lot of options. We'll find out. Now's not the time to do this.
As you guys are kind of standing around talking with Zento, you're suddenly going to see Harper sort of re-enter the room. As he kind of comes forward, he's going to walk up to Roland and sort of place his hand on him. I'm headed out, he says. Roland's going to kind of turn. All of you are going to suddenly see Hero. His eyes are going to suddenly open from a blink. And as he does, they are glowing. June, Isaac, Yuffie, you would all recognize the eyes of a Fate Reader. Hero is going to turn suddenly, monstrously powerful. The room notices him. Everyone's going to turn suddenly. Harper's going to look down towards Hero as Hero turns towards the two of them. There is a sound that echoes forth from his mouth. As the sound echoes forth, you're going to relive the pain that you had from the prophecy. Except now you all share it. 5 names. Juniper, Isaac Crowley, Euphemia Carr, might be a hero, and Harper, Light Warden. Hero is floating slightly off the ground. He touches back down, and then it drops him.
Catch him.
As you and Euphemia reach your hands towards him, he looks very drained.
She will gently stroke his head. She knows how painful that is.
You're going to see Roland and Harper's equal look of horror.
She'll turn and look at Harper. Why was it your name? What's going on?
He's going to kind of grab Roland's shoulder. Maybe you should go, he says. Oh, man. Roland looks over at Harper. The kings look at each one of you.
It looks like fate has changed.
What did I do? Hero says, looking up at you all. And with no answers forthcoming, we will end the session.